The screams of dying Grarl soldiers echoed across the blood-soaked battlefield, as human marines decimated their forces with ruthless efficiency, revealing the true reason the Galactic Council banned humans from interstellar conflicts. Ryza, a Varak diplomat, sprinted through the bustling spaceport on the Council's capital planet. He had to deliver an urgent message about the war between the Varak Empire and the Grarl Confederacy. In the crowded terminal, he collided with Alex Monroe, a grizzled human veteran boarding a transport to the front lines, defying the ban on human soldiers. Alex's cryptic parting words left Ryza unsettled. At the council chambers, Ryza shared news of Varak losses and the need for aid. A fierce debate erupted over lifting the human ban. Some cited humans' unpredictable, violent nature, while others argued humanity's involvement was critical to prevent the Grarls from genociding the Varak. The survival of trillions hinged on this decision. Ryza questioned the real motives behind exiling Earth from the galactic stage. He knew time was running out for his people. 200 years earlier, at the height of the Grarl-Varak War, the Galactic Council chambers buzzed with heated debate. The war had dragged on for far too long, with no end in sight. Casualties mounted on both sides as the conflict consumed entire star systems. In a last-ditch effort to bring the war to a close, the Council voted to lift the long-standing ban on human involvement in galactic affairs. A request for aid was dispatched to Earth, imploring the humans to send their best soldiers to support the Varak war effort. The humans, who had long been eager to prove their mettle on the galactic stage, responded with enthusiasm. A contingent of their most elite warriors, led by Commander Liam Hart, was quickly assembled and dispatched to the front lines. Hart, a battle-hardened soldier with a reputation for unconventional tactics, was determined to show the galaxy what humans were capable of. Upon arriving at the Varak Forward Operating Base, Commander Hart and his team were greeted by General Korath, a grizzled Varak veteran with a no-nonsense demeanor. Korath eyed the humans with skepticism, his scales rippling with barely concealed disdain. "Commander Hart," Korath said, his voice a low rumble, "I hope your soldiers are prepared for what lies ahead. This is not a war for the inexperienced or faint of heart." Hart met the general's gaze unflinching. "General Korath, I assure you that my team is more than capable. We may be new to this conflict, but we are no strangers to war. We will not only meet your expectations, but exceed them." As the human soldiers integrated with the Varak forces, they quickly adapted to the unfamiliar technology and proved their worth in small skirmishes against Grarl raiders. Hart led his team with the combination of tactical brilliance and raw courage, earning the grudging respect of their Varak allies. However, the true test of the humans' mettle came when the Grarl launched a massive offensive on a key Varak colony world. The Grarl forces, armed with superior numbers and firepower, pushed the Varak back to their last line of defense. The situation looked grim, with the Varak on the verge of a crushing defeat. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, General Korath ordered Commander Hart and his team to lead a daring counterattack on the Grarl command ship. It was a risky gambit, but the humans were the only ones with the technology and audacity to pull it off. Hart and his team, armed with prototype human weapons and stealth technology, managed to infiltrate the Grarl ship undetected. They made their way to the bridge, where they confronted the Grarl leader, Admiral Zorak. Zorak, a towering figure with razor-sharp claws and a cruel smile, looked down at the humans with contempt. "Pathetic creatures," he snarled. "You dare to challenge me on my own ship?" Commander Hart stepped forward, his weapon trained on the Admiral. "We're here to end this war, Zorak. Surrender now, and we can avoid further bloodshed." Zorak laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Surrender to a pack of hairless apes? I think not." With a roar, Zorak charged at Hart, his claws outstretched. Hart met him head-on, dodging the Admiral's blows and retaliating with a series of precise strikes. The two leaders engaged in a fierce hand-to-hand battle, trading blows across the bridge. In the end, it was Hart who emerged victorious. With a final decisive blow, he sent Zorak crashing to the ground, unconscious. The rest of the Grarl bridge crew, seeing their leader defeated, quickly surrendered. The loss of their command ship threw the Grarl forces on the colony world into disarray. Seizing the opportunity, the Varak launched a devastating counterattack, driving the Grarl back and ultimately securing a decisive victory. News of the humans' crucial role in turning the tide of the battle spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy. Races that had once dismissed the humans as weak and irrelevant now saw them in a new light. The humans, it seemed, were a force to be reckoned with. Ryza sat hunched over his desk, datapads and holographic displays scattered before him. The soft glow of the screens illuminated his scaled features as he pored over the classified documents he had managed to uncover. His mind raced with questions about the humans' involvement in the Grarl Varak War, and he was determined to find answers. As he delved deeper into the archives, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. In the battles following the humans' initial victory, the Varak forces had undergone a chilling transformation. Gone were the honorable warriors who adhered to the galactic laws of warfare. In their place stood soldiers who embraced brutality and ruthlessness. Reports from the front lines painted a grim picture. Varak troops, once known for their restraint, now employed banned weapons that caused unimaginable suffering. Civilian populations, previously off-limits, became targets of indiscriminate attacks. Grarl prisoners, who should have been treated with dignity, were subjected to torture and degradation. Ryza felt a growing sense of unease as he uncovered evidence suggesting that the humans, particularly Commander Hart and his team, had actively encouraged and participated in these atrocities. The very soldiers who had been hailed as heroes for turning the tide of the war now stood accused of war crimes. As the conflict progressed, the Varak began to rely heavily on the humans' tactics, adopting their aggressive strategies and disregarding the consequences. Victory after victory was achieved, but at a terrible cost. The Varak Empire, once a beacon of honor and justice, became synonymous with cruelty and brutality. Ryza leaned back in his chair, his mind reeling from the revelations. He had always wondered why the Galactic Council had chosen to ban human involvement in future conflicts, but now, he understood. The humans' influence had corrupted the Varak, leading them down a dark and twisted path. A blinking light on one of the datapads caught Ryza's attention. It was a highly encrypted file buried deep within the archives. With trembling claws, he accessed the file and found himself staring at a recorded conversation between Commander Hart and General Korath. The holographic figures flickered to life, and Ryza watched as Hart leaned in close to Korath, his voice low and intense. "General, we have the Grarl on the run. Now is the time to strike a decisive blow. We must annihilate them completely, wipe them from the face of the galaxy. It's the only way to ensure lasting peace." Korath shifted uncomfortably, his scales rippling with unease. "Commander, what you're suggesting goes against everything we stand for. It's genocide." Hart's eyes narrowed. "It's what needs to be done. The Grarl will never stop fighting unless we eliminate them, every last one of them." Korath sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping. "I'll consider your proposal, Commander, but I have my reservations." The recording ended abruptly, leaving Ryza stunned. The implications were staggering. If Hart had convinced Korath to go through with the plan, the entire Grarl race could have been wiped out. Ryza knew he couldn't stop now. He had to uncover the full truth behind the humans' actions during the war. With renewed determination, he began to compile a list of surviving members of Hart's team and General Korath himself. He would track them down one by one and piece together the events that had transpired. As he worked, a nagging thought lingered in the back of his mind. If the humans were capable of such atrocities in the past, what would happen if they were allowed to intervene in the current conflict? The stakes were higher than ever, and Ryza feared that history might repeat itself. Ryza stepped out of his shuttle onto the dusty surface of the remote planet, his eyes scanning the desolate landscape. The coordinates he had obtained led him to this forsaken world, where former Lieutenant Marcus James had chosen to hide from his past. Ryza approached the small, nondescript dwelling that stood as the only sign of civilization amidst the barren terrain. He knocked on the door, the metallic sound echoing in the stillness. After a long moment, the door creaked open, revealing a haggard human face. James' eyes widened in recognition of Ryza's Varrock features, and he quickly attempted to slam the door shut. Ryza wedged his foot in the doorway. "Wait, Lieutenant James, I'm not here to harm you. I need to talk to you about the Varrock War." James hesitated, then reluctantly stepped aside, allowing Ryza to enter. Inside, the dwelling was sparse and dimly lit. James motioned for Ryza to sit at a small table, and they faced each other in tense silence. "What do you want to know?" James finally asked, his voice tinged with bitterness. Ryza took a deep breath. "I need to understand what happened during the war. The humans' involvement, the war crimes, everything." James sighed, rubbing his temples. "It was a nightmare. At first, we thought we were doing the right thing, helping the Varrock against the Grarl. But it all went wrong. He was obsessed with victory at any cost. He pushed us to cross lines we should never have crossed." Ryza leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "What about the atrocities? The banned weapons, the civilian attacks?" James' face twisted with guilt. Hart believed that the only way to ensure victory was through total annihilation of the enemy. He convinced Korath to authorize tactics that were monstrous. "We were ordered to use weapons that cause unimaginable suffering, to target civilian populations, to break the Grarl's spirit. It was war, but it was also madness." Ryza's mind raced as he absorbed James' words. "And you went along with it?" James' eyes filled with pain. "I didn't know what else to do. We were soldiers following orders, but deep down, we knew it was wrong. After the war, I couldn't live with the guilt. That's why I came here, to get away from it all." Ryza nodded, understanding the weight of James' remorse. "Thank you for telling me the truth. I need to find General Korath. Do you know where he is?" James hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Last I heard, Korath was living in seclusion on a distant moon, trying to atone for his sins. But be careful, Ryza. The truth you're seeking, it's a dark path." As Ryza left the dwelling and prepared to head to the moon, where Korath resided, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the verge of uncovering a truth that could change the fate of the galaxy. The echoes of the past war still reverberated, and the choices made now would determine the future. Arriving on the remote moon, Ryza found General Korath living in a small, secluded cabin nestled within a dense forest. The once mighty Varrock general appeared, a shadow of his former self, his scales dull and his posture weary. He welcomed Ryza with a solemn nod, sensing the gravity of his visit. As they sat by a crackling fire inside the cabin, Ryza wasted no time. "General Korath, I need to know the truth about the humans' involvement in the Varrock War. What really happened?" Korath's eyes darkened as he stared into the flames. "The humans, they brought both salvation and damnation. Hart was a charismatic leader, but his methods were ruthless. He convinced me that the only way to end the war was through total eradication of the Grarl. I regret it every day." Ryza pressed on, his voice steady. "Did you authorize the use of banned weapons and attacks on civilians?" Korath's shoulders slumped, and he nodded slowly. "Yes, I allowed it, believing it was the only way to secure victory. But the cost was too high. We became monsters in our pursuit of peace." Ryza's mind churned with the weight of Korath's confession. The Galactic Council banned humans from interstellar conflicts because of what they did during the war, didn't they? Korath sighed heavily. "Yes, the Council feared that humanity's unpredictable nature and capacity for violence could destabilize the entire galaxy. They hoped that by banning humans, they could prevent another tragedy like the Varak War. Ryza stood, determination hardening his resolve. Thank you, General. I needed to hear the truth. I have to stop the Council from lifting the ban on human involvement in the current conflict. History must not repeat itself. Koret's gaze met Ryza's, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Good luck, Ryza. The galaxy needs someone who remembers the lessons of the past. With newfound clarity, Ryza left the moon and returned to the Council's capital planet. He presented his findings, detailing the atrocities committed during the Varak War and the consequences of lifting the ban on humans. The council members listened in stunned silence, their faces reflecting the gravity of the revelations. As the debate raged on, Ryza stood firm, advocating for a different approach to the current conflict. He argued for diplomacy, cooperation, and the use of advanced non-lethal technologies to end the war without repeating the mistakes of the past. In the end, the Council voted to maintain the ban on human involvement in interstellar conflicts, opting instead to provide humanitarian aid and support to the Varak. Ryza's persistence had paid off, and he hoped that his efforts would pave the way for a future where peace could be achieved without the horrors of war. As Ryza looked out over the bustling capital city, he felt a sense of relief. The echoes of the past had been heard, and the galaxy had taken a step toward a more hopeful future.